Hello and thank you for joining us here at the First Alert Desk. I'm Maria Moreau. We want to take you straight out to a live picture in Fort Myers where our Courtney Jacobazi is right now, and she is currently in that area looking at just some of the damage left behind by Hurricane Ian and the recovery efforts that are underway. Courtney, what can you tell us? I mean, this is a surreal picture we're looking at.
Yeah, absolutely, Maria. And I talked to a lot of people in the area, many of them who have lived here for decades, and they said that they've been through some pretty bad hurricanes, naming off Charlie, naming off Irma, but they said that there was really nothing like this. So what I'm standing in right now is actually ocean water. This is some of the devastating storm surge, and notice it goes all the way down the street. This street is what leads you to the beach, and we are standing in that ocean water. Everyone's property across this street has become oceanfront property. It is really just devastating. Now that little house right there, the one that's kind of that tan color, that's actually a group of apartments. We spoke to a woman in that house who said that the water was 5 feet. That's as tall as me, guys. So the water completely into that house earlier in the night, or later in the night, I should say. She did say, of course, she's okay. She had a few animals in the house. The animals are also okay. But that's a story we've been hearing from a lot of people, that the water rushed in, and it rushed in fast. And it was just absolutely terrifying. A lot of people saying that it was, again, unlike anything they'd ever seen. We had some people, and I think Lee is going to end up showing you this, my photographer. Some people were escaping their homes on boat. A lot of people, of course, in this area have boats, and instead of using them for leisure, they were quite literally using them to save them and their families' lives. There's that boat right there that is not on a trailer. So they took the boat off the trailer because it was floating in the water from the storm surge. They drove it through the streets of downtown Fort Myers and then ended up landing right there. There were actually people in these pink and yellow apartment buildings here, condo buildings, that were nice enough to bring that family in. It was a mother, a father, a couple of kids, a few dogs, and a complete stranger, but a community member helped them and took them in, and their boat is stuck there. They said, we'll worry about that later. That's not our top priority right now. So that's what we're seeing, and those are just some of the stories we've been hearing, but the storm surge is still here, of course, inundating some of these streets, but definitely an improvement as the buildings that you're looking at were halfway under the water.
And Courtney, you were there yesterday. You stood in that hurricane, that Category 4 storm, smelling the air, feeling those winds. Describe that moment for you. I mean, we can see the devastation, and that's already so hard to watch, but standing in it must be an entirely different picture.
Yeah, we're actually hearing some people talk to their neighbors right now about their experience. But yeah, it was wild. Again, I've kind of talked about multiple times. I'm from South Florida. I'm no stranger to hurricanes. I've been in plenty of them, but that was wild. And this storm, and that's kind of what a lot of people were saying. They're like, we've been through hurricanes before. But this is unlike anything that we'd ever seen. A lot of people saying here along the Gulf Coast that they're used to getting some of kind of the remnants of storms or them staying off the coast, but not actually getting a direct hit. And that is pretty rare for this area. The last real major storm to direct hit this area was Charlie. That was the last big one. Irma too. People were saying that Irma didn't take a direct hit here, but got very close. Either way, it was unlike anything. To be standing in winds that were hurricane strength, it really shows you the power of Mother Nature, makes you appreciate it a lot more. And we were 2 hours north of here. I couldn't imagine being in something like this, seeing water rush into your house, hearing the wind outside your window. I know from being in other major hurricanes before, when you're sitting in your house and the wind is whipping against the shutters and you're hearing things crack outside your door, not knowing what they are, not knowing what you're going to walk out to the next day, it's a really surreal and eerie feeling. And that's what a lot of people here are feeling today as they walk around these streets and see what's left of their town that now looks completely different. We're unable to go any further down this street. The police do have it blocked off. But really, I can imagine that there's just even worse conditions as you go down this road, as homes were almost completely underwater. We were talking to some people that said they had to get on their roof just to escape the floodwaters. So it really is something I've never personally seen before. And even yesterday, being in St. Pete, that was a wild experience. And a lot of people there saying that they're just lucky. They are the lucky ones. They said, we know that we're going to lose power in some spots. We know trees are going to go down, but we didn't take a direct hit like we originally thought. And so they're all really counting their blessings in that area this morning.
I mean, just take a look at that spillage that Lee is bringing us. It is just shocking. I wanted to ask if you had a chance to talk to some of the officials in the area about how this recovery process is going to look like and where they're even going to start at this point.
Right. So we've been getting emergency alerts to our phone. A lot of the gas stations in the area were actually underwater as well. So some of what's in this water is actually gasoline right now. And a lot of the officials have been sending alerts throughout the day to our phones saying things like generators, they can produce carbon monoxide. And of course, carbon monoxide, very poisonous, a silent killer. You can't smell it. So, sending out emergency alerts like that. There's a boil water advisory for this area. So everyone has to boil their water. So those are the first steps. They're just making sure everyone is staying as safe as possible while they're trying to recover. But there have been constant ambulances, there have been police cars, emergency vehicles like medics coming through here, just kind of trying to, I think right now what everyone is kind of trying to do is get a lay of the land, figure out who needs what and what exactly is left of the town and where they need to begin before they can even start. So because I think right now everyone's just trying to understand what exactly happened and get a feel for what exactly is going to be left of this town to clean up.
Courtney, I want to make sure that you're staying safe out there too. We heard previously from Governor DeSantis saying, there's still down power lines and community members should really be cautious about leaving their homes and where they're stepping right now. I also wanted to ask you just about this sense of community. That's something you talked about right when we got on this live stream, is people coming together. I mean, are you still seeing that at this point, that just sense of community through the past few days as this hurricane has come through?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've seen constant neighbors coming out and talking to each other, handing out water to each other. Of course, we talked to some people who were taken in by their... There's people with their dog or their cat outside the window. You did it! You survived!
That is so cute.
And I think people are trying to make light. There are people trying to make light of the situation, of course. A lot of people, I think, feeling right now that they're just thankful that, you hear it all the time, the cliche, that you can replace property, you can't replace a life. So I think a lot of people are kind of taking that and running with it and making that their motto right now, and trying to do things like find joy of, where that woman you just saw with her adorable cat, her neighbors just below her probably had water in the first floor of their home. And so I can only imagine how scary that is, thinking, oh my gosh, that could be us next, and oh my gosh, how can we help my neighbor? So to now, this is probably a little bit, as scary as it is, almost a breath of relief for some of these people to not have to worry about water in their homes right now. I mean, this can all be cleaned up. This can all be taken care of. But just to be able to finally say, okay, the storm is over, it's gone, Coast Guard coming in, that's that helicopter that you're able to see. So, clearly a very active situation, constantly things changing, a lot going on here as people walk around, see what happened, and try to help their neighbors as much as they can.
Courtney, I know you've been on the ground talking to these residents and covering this hurricane really for the past several days. I wanted to talk to the meteorologist and you as we have our coastal Georgia regions looking at this devastation and getting concerned. We know that this hurricane has died down since what we've reported yesterday, but can you give us a little forecast about what it's going to look like when it nears that Georgia, South Carolina area?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now, it is moving closer to the Daytona Beach area, if I believe. To be honest with you, we kind of lost cell service for a long time, so I haven't been able to keep as up to date as I would like to. But I did speak with our team of First Alert meteorologists, and we were talking about how it is going to, by the weekend, by Friday night, really start to pick up along the Georgia coast. So we're talking the Savannah area, the Myrtle Beach area, and be a fairly strong tropical storm as it moves in. So tropical storm force conditions are pretty likely along the coast. There is that threat of storm surge along the coast. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not going to be a foot of storm surge plus like we've been seeing in this area from Ian, but there is still that threat of storm surge. So we're going to keep up to date. Thankfully, our threats at home are looking a lot less. It is definitely going to be breezy, though, back there in North Georgia. And I just kind of want to end on this now that you're talking about the track of the storm. Some of the people here, I was looking, on Monday, the cone of uncertainty for this storm had the far right side of the cone in this area. So really people here had about 24 hours to act fast and get out and make that decision and prepare. And that's possible when it comes to these hurricanes. Like when you're in that cone of uncertainty, it's so important to really pay attention and know that it is a possibility that you are going to get impacted by that storm, whether you're on the far right side of the cone or the far left. But I think that is one of the hardest things that people here had to deal with, is just the lack of time. And that's nobody's fault. Storms can be really unpredictable. When that storm went over Cuba, the center of circulation got all shaken up, and then it had to try and reorganize, and models had to try and get their bearings again. So how quickly the track of this storm changed, I think, really made it difficult for residents here to make proper preparations and decide to leave. It's hard to leave everything you've worked for and make that decision in less than 24 hours. So that's something that we've been hearing from people here, how quickly the track changed from thinking on Monday it was going to be Tampa northward to just Wednesday when it made landfall here about 2.5 hours south.
Courtney, I like to say we're humans before we're journalists, and our hearts do go out to those in Florida. I want to make sure, because you are from Florida, I ask this. Is your family and loved ones all doing okay? Have you had a chance to check in on them?
Yeah, thankfully, my parents, they are on the opposite coast, so they're doing all right. My grandmother lives in Cape Coral, which is about an hour north of here. She's doing okay. Her power is out, but her phones were perfectly charged because we made sure to remind her that her cell phones were charged so we could check in with her. She didn't say that she had to worry about any storm surge in her home. She thankfully isn't in a flood-prone area. So the family is all doing okay. I appreciate you asking.
Absolutely. We wish you continued safety, you, Lindsay Lee. Hope to see you back at the station pretty soon.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Maria.
All right, guys, I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about where the path of Hurricane Ian is right now. So we are currently looking at more the opposite side from what we were showing you yesterday. And that is going to look like here. I'll bring up this map for you if you can give me a moment. Daytona Beach is really where that flash flood emergency is at the moment, and you can kind of see that the yellow and the red area on this graphic alone just showing you the impact is centered there. So Daytona Beach, Port Orange, of course, those areas, if you are in there, you want to make sure you continue to listen out for those alerts. And then we are also monitoring the coastal Georgia regions, Charleston and South Carolina. So we are going to be bringing you those updates as well on our website, atlantanewsfirst.com. But if in the meantime, if you are in those areas of impact, we've shown you really all morning the trajectory of Hurricane Ian. Download the First Alert app. That is going to tell you about rainfall, gusts, and any hurricane-related weather updates that could impact you. So we want to make sure you have those first alerts on. We're going to bring those to you on that app hour by hour with the latest updates on what we learn from National Hurricane Center, from hurricane officials. Stick with us, of course. In a couple minutes, actually, we're going to be talking to a hurricane resilience building expert to talk about what recovery even looks like. I mean, that picture that Courtney showed you, it's going to take a lot of people, a lot of community members and officials, first responders, to just get that street alone cleaned up. So you can imagine the amount of areas that are suffering that impact. We're going to talk to that expert a little bit about what the recovery process looks like as far as getting those people back to their daily lives and getting their homes restored to what it looked like, or close to what it looked like pre-hurricane damage. So stick with us.